I'd like to welcome you today, and this is again another one of my favorite topics. I only teach on my favorite topics, but it is on respecting the wisdom of the body. And it's a very important philosophical topic to talk about as a doctor because, you know, when you pick a doctor, whether it's the Hansa Center or somebody closer to home or a medical doctor, you really need to not just think about what the medicine is, but what is his philosophy? What does he think needs to happen in order to get well? Okay? So respecting the wisdom of the body is part of our philosophy of healing, even of diagnostics. It gets into this whole understanding is like, so many people come here thankful after 20 years that some other doctor says, you have Lyme disease. And that person doesn't want to be confused with all the other things that goes on here at the clinic. They kind of go, dude, you didn't even address what I came here with. Well, again, the philosophy of medicine is if I can figure out you have this infection, then I can kill it for your body. There's no respect of the body, that the body can actually function perfectly in spite of that infection, right? So respecting the wisdom of the body requires that you have the best knowledge on hand at all times. You have the best sciences that you can get at all times. You have experience so that you know what to do with that knowledge, because that's what wisdom is, isn't it? It is that experientially applied, percolated, filtered down, refined, purified knowledge that is moved into now wisdom, knowing what to do with it, right? So wisdom is part of what we do here is applying all the best of science to get to that wisdom. Now, a lot of medicine is based on something called idiopathic etiology. If you look in Robbins' pathology textbook, this is the same textbook we used in college. It's the textbook for your MD. Robbins' pathology lists out every single pathology that we know about practically. Every disease. And it'll actually itemize etiology, which means cause. What is the cause of it? You'd be surprised how almost every illness we know about that's in this big fat textbook says idiopathic etiology. And for those of you who don't know what idiopathic means, it sounds like idiot, doesn't it? Well, that's what it means. Don't know. You just don't know. So if you don't know what's causing it, then philosophically, what can the doctor do after he's diagnosed you with something based on your symptoms? All he can really do is treat the symptoms, right? That's all he can't. He doesn't know what's causing it. He can look at the textbook and prove nobody else knows what's causing it, right? So as a philosophy, we're looking to not necessarily treat you based on your diagnosis. We're treating you to restore what's optimum. Which is the point too, isn't it? Wouldn't you like it? It's like if you could take a symptom-treating drug, let's say Tylenol for a headache, and if it actually did work, the ultimate result would be that you'd have optimum health restored and you wouldn't have the headache. If that's truly what Tylenol did for you. But it doesn't actually fix anything. Even if you don't get that headache again, the Tylenol isn't really what fixed you. It's just masking the problem, right? Maybe it pushes it into a whole new presentation that takes years to fully manifest into some new condition. So 88% of all pharmaceutical medicines by their own admission treat only the symptoms. And that's getting to be even more now, I think. It's even greater than 88%. So again, if you're only treating the symptoms, are you respecting the body? No, the number one class of pharmaceutical medicines right now in development are called lifetime drugs. These are the drugs they want you to take forever. And most people are happy with that. They go, well, thank goodness I have this drug because, otherwise nothing could be done. It's not true. Actually, if you treat to restore what's optimum, you get to that point anyway, because if you restore that optimum function, your health comes back, and it stays. You're not in remission, because remission, remember, remission is the suppression, right out of the medical dictionary. Remission is the suppression of the symptom through medical treatments. It has nothing to do with treating cause. That's the word cure. It's a four-letter dirty word in medicine. I mean, even when I went through college, and all of our doctors went through college, they said, don't use the cure word. Matter of fact, I know a doctor that got in trouble because, let's see, the patient didn't agree with what she was doing was valid, so she said something to the Healing Arts Board, and the Healing Arts Board said, let me see what you wrote, and the only thing they could find was, in the notes that the doctor took, was just that she said fix, the word fix. Like we were going to fix something, you know, like in your neck. It was just a chiropractic thing. It was kind of goofy from the get-go. But the board said, we don't want you to use the word fix. I was like, really? You go to the doctor, but I can't say I'm going to fix something, right? In the medical dictionaries, the word cure means to restore health. It's not about a symptom, but achieves the same goal, right? No symptoms. To restore health. So when you realize that 80% of the time where you feel the pain is not where it's coming from, you can kind of see, again, philosophically, the wisdom of the body is to not just treat where you feel it, especially these times where you wake up in the morning and it's just like something really hurts and you know you didn't lift something and you know you have no reason for the symptom. You know, oh man, my neck is really bad, or my low back is really bad, or my leg feels bad, or my knee feels bad. It is not really coming from that spot most of the time. Like your knee pain very often is coming from problems in the kidneys. Kidneys and the knees go together hand in hand. So, but you can go get a urine test and a blood test and it doesn't show any problems in the kidneys. So you go, well, how do I treat what I can't find? Well, that's why we do things like the CRT. That's why we do bioresonance scanning. That's why we're trained. All the doctors here are trained to actually do other types of tests to figure out where's the functional problem that's creating the knee pain. Treat that, then the knee pain goes away. So true healing can never occur by simply masking the symptoms. This is a statement you've probably heard me tweet and Facebook on, and it's in my books, because it's on the coffee mugs even, I think, because again, to mask the symptoms is counterproductive to the point of truly healing. Right? True healing can't occur by simply masking the symptoms. So when we understand that the body is giving us signs constantly that we need to respect as a doctor. You know, when I was a child and anyone older than me was a child, generally, they were like, you don't have to have a fever. You can take Tylenol. You can take antipyretics, they're called, this class of medicines, over-the-counter stuff that will bring down a fever. You don't ever have to have a fever now. You don't have to have childhood illnesses now. Those aren't functional for anything. The body isn't actually using the illness for some purpose. Imagine that. Have you ever heard that your body can use an illness to get to the next maturity level, especially as a child? I wrote in my book about this, the Lyme disease book. I think I put this in there. And I made the analogy. I remember as a child first seeing the very first rocket to the moon. Some of y'all that are older, you remember that? I remember I was quite young, but Mom and Dad had us stay up and watch it on the black and white TV. You remember the one you had to get up and change the channel for? And I remember distinctly thinking something had dreadfully gone wrong, because nobody had seen rockets go off really as on TV. I mean, as a kid, I don't remember how old I was. I must have been 6 or 7. But I remember seeing the billowing smoke and fire at the bottom of it. And again, you think, oh my gosh, this thing's exploding, right? But it doesn't. It slowly comes up, and it's like, it goes up, and then it explodes again. As the camera's following it, it explodes again, and a big chunk of the rocket falls off. And it looks like it's not going to quite get there, but it does, right? And that's kind of how childhood illness is. It's a lot of the time, moms all over the world will tell you, it's like, little Johnny just seems a little more mature after he got over that last illness. And that chaos was necessary. The explosion of the rocket was necessary to really achieve the optimum orbit. You had to get rid of some of the dead weight now, right? And the fuel tanks fell off, and a section of the thing fell off, and ultimately it's just this little capsule that comes back, right? You have to download and get rid of that extra weight so that you can achieve orbit. And that's how many times a fever is something your body is actually using. It's not a disease process so much. It's not going to kill you so much, especially in a healthy individual. A healthy child with healthy parents that lived a good lifestyle. They may get that fever. They look like they're dying, but they're not. And when they come out of it, the child has fallen away a little more. And the more mature adult is what's coming to the surface. And if you suppress that with vaccinations, and you suppress that with anti-fever medications, you start getting generational problems. Because now, after years of health through better health through chemistry was the slogan of one of the big pharma companies back when I was a kid. Now what do we have? We have entire generations of children being born now that have never had a fever. They get the infections everyone else does, but they don't generate a fever. Their body temperature is too low. They're not as full-blooded, right? People aren't as full-blooded as we used to be back in the 16, 17, 1800s, stuff like that. We've moved away as humanity, if you will, away from the inflammatory illnesses as being what's dominant, now to what's called cold sclerotic diseases. These are the prevalent things: MS, ALS, heart disease, diabetes, arteriosclerosis, all these things. These are cold cancer, diabetes. They're all just cold sclerotic, hardening diseases. Now we see our children experiencing what only used to be geriatric diseases. Isn't that crazy? Our children are now having what just some old decrepit person would maybe have after years of abusing their body, but now we've done this to ourselves through not respecting the wisdom of the body, saying, you don't have to have childhood illnesses. Some of these that don't kill you, they're a pain, but they don't kill you. We don't need you to fight your own little sore throat, because we can now give you an antibiotic. And yet we go now with Lyme disease, let's say we go, you're a horrible person, Dr. Jernigan, if you think that somebody doesn't need antibiotics. I'm like going, well, how's it working for you? Dr. Phil kind of thing, right? How's it working for you? So let's talk about some of the different ways that we know that there is a wisdom of the body. Okay? In cancer, in veterinary medicine, they know that if a dog swallows a bone that's too big to pass through the stomach, that very often that dog's stomach will start developing cancerous tumor called adenocarcinoma of the stomach. And that tumor produces so much more intense acid that that acid dissolves the bone and do nothing, right? Just let it run its course. And it's full-blown cancer. You know, it's not any different than adenocarcinoma in a human. And guess what? When the bone dissolves and passes, the tumor goes away by itself. But think about this. Okay, not everybody swallowed a bone that has stomach cancer in humans, let's say. But does any doctor, even for a moment, stop and go, what's your body trying to do? If it's truly not the tumor that's the cause anyway, then what is the body trying to do with this? They don't do that. If any kind of cancer, it's like you have cancer, they flip open their book of recipes and they run their cookbook recipe for that type of cancer. That's just what we do. It doesn't work that good, but the doctor goes, it's the best we got. And sometimes it works, it seems, but anyway. Philosophy, again, is what we're talking about. Here's another example in the body. How many of you have heard, that you had a military neck? They did an x-ray and they said you have a straight neck. Okay, it's like you have a reverse curve to your neck. Well, a lot of people do. Chiropractic profession has done millions and millions of dollars worth of research and billions in treatment trying to get the curve of the neck restored. And a lot of the time they say, well, this is because of a whiplash injury. And the person goes, I've never fallen in my life. Well, you've had a car accident, right? No, never had a car accident either. Well, I don't know why you have this. You must have fallen and forgotten about it. But the curve of the neck, which is supposed to be curved this way, will often be very straight or even the opposite way. Now, I want you to notice something on this picture right here. Okay, here's your mouth, your nose, and the airway. Okay, this is your tongue. See, we usually just see the very end of our tongue, but it's actually this big red section right here. That's the massive muscle of the tongue. And what happens is, very often, when there is a problem in the muscles of mastication, maybe development of the jaw, and again, we're talking about, we develop right, we know this from proper nutrition, your parents, what their nutrition was as they were growing up, what your mom and dad were eating, drinking, smoking, popping in the 70s, let's say, your grandparents, and the offspring, very often, you know, we call them like juvenile delinquents in the old days, but in medicine it was like the jaws don't develop very well in some of these children. Okay, so it compromises the lower jaw. Sometimes you see people with no jaw whatsoever. Sometimes you see people with jaws that are thrust out. Their teeth are angled in sometimes, and then, God forbid, they get braces, and the dentist just forces their teeth to have that perfect smile. And that's torquing and twisting on the jaw and the musculature. And look what's happening. There is a point, I'm getting to it. This right in here is very narrow, where the tongue and the airway are. And down in here, and what happens is the tongue starts rolling backwards in response to all this developmental problems. And it compromises the airway. Okay? What is the wisdom of the body? This is what an x-ray, a lateral x-ray, see here's the jaw. And look, this is a perfect C shape. This is what it should look like, right? This is that reverse curve. See how it's coming away? Guess what's happening there? This wasn't a whiplash accident. Maybe it was a whiplash accident that caused it, but the why it happened wasn't because of the accident, it turns out. It turns out that when that tongue starts falling back and closing the airway, and you sleep with that, the wisdom of the body takes over, and guess what? The spine moves out of the way. The body moves the spine out of the way so that the airway is maintained. Because you can live without food for quite a while, right? You can live without water for quite a while, but you can't live but a few minutes if you don't have air. So the autonomic nervous system, the software of the body, literally gets the spine out of the way so that your airway is maintained while you sleep so you don't die. This is also why a lot of people wake up multiple times a night. They have to go to the bathroom multiple times a night. They have nightmares multiple times a night. And it's really that wisdom of the body going, I got to jolt you awake because I'm not able to keep you breathing. And you don't have any consciousness of it because you were asleep. You think you just woke up because you had to go to the bathroom. But that's that adrenaline jolt that's sent to the body that goes, okay, breathe in the middle of the night. Restore the optimum condition so that recognizing the wisdom of the body and working with that is to get that tongue to come up and out. And this is actually what happens. The body comes back into a perfect C shape. Isn't that amazing? Without 100,000 chiropractic adjustments. Right? It's like the chiropractor joke. How many chiropractors does it take to change a light bulb? One, but it takes 120 visits. Okay? This is no visits. Now, I got taught the same way. This research isn't out there, by the way. This hasn't been published yet because this was done with oral system balancing research where they actually got that tongue to come up and out and they repositioned the jaw. And when I went to the conference, I was watching their x-rays and I was like, hello, excuse me, do you have lots of this? And they go, yeah, we have tons of this in our database of before and after x-rays like this. I'm like, you don't even know what you have. I mean, we worked for years trying to get somebody's cervical spine to go back to optimum, right? We're popping the neck, we're twisting the neck, we're pulling on the neck, we're tractioning the spine, we're giving you a cervical pillow to use, we're kinesiotaping your neck. And that was a total disrespecting of the body. For all of our best intentions, because if I was successful at pushing this forward, guess what happens to you, your autonomic nervous system? It starts freaking out, going, no, I had a reason for doing this. I gotta have this, otherwise I can't breathe. So people that have those cervical pillows and they sleep on them, guess what? They don't sleep good on them sometimes. They're getting adjusted and all things are going crazy. Their adrenal glands won't ever calm down because of you're disrespecting the wisdom of what the body's trying to do in the first place. So we're going to go through one more. This is actually a picture of the blood vessels, and when there's an inflammation, let's say it's an infection in the wall of the blood vessel. Now, again, what have you all been taught about cholesterol? Good or bad? Bad. Cholesterol is bad. Drive that thing down. It's the number one selling medicine right now is anti-cholesterol stuff and statins and stuff like that, right? Well, guess what? Cholesterol isn't bad. Cholesterol is sticky, like, so that it can actually, almost like if this was a pothole on the road, out on the street, cholesterol is supposed to fill it in, which is what we start seeing happen. Okay, we got LDL cholesterol, and it starts filling in the pothole. But just like the city workers, do they ever just smooth it out, make it nice and flat? Nah, they mound it over, don't they? You go, why did you do that? Well, they know that as cars drive over it, it's going to keep compacting down until finally it's flat, right? Well, in the body, it's the same way. Cholesterol fills in the pothole, that inflamed area, and we need it to do that. And then it actually forms a capsule right there, and this picture doesn't show it, but yeast, like Candida, how many women here have heard that Candida is the enemy? Come on, raise your hands, everybody. Monostat, right? Well, guys, we got it too. Thankfully, we just don't have the anatomy to manifest it. But yeast, it turns out, reacts to this inflammation as the cleanup crew to come in and flatten that. It's like breaking a bone, right? The body builds a big callus around the break, but before it's all over with, it would take a forensic pathologist to figure out where you broke the bone. It's so perfectly healed. And that's where yeast comes in. And in the meantime, if you keep getting more and more inflammation, what does the yeast keep having to do? React more and more and more. Well, then it gets so bad that you have a yeast situation throughout your blood, and the natural doctor even says, we gotta kill the yeast. Until we get rid of the heavy metals and we kill the yeast, you're never gonna get well. Not, again, respecting the wisdom of the body, that the body was only doing this because it has inflammation everywhere. And yeast is a normal body flora. It's supposed to be there. And if it's out of control, there's a reason. I mean, if it's like a ton of yeast happening, there's a reason. Treat the reason, and guess what? The yeast goes back down to normal levels because all the need for them to be up there is not there anymore. Kind of wild, isn't it? So this is what I mean by wisdom of the body. You know, hopefully when your child, your neighbor, yourself, when you get a headache, when you get a sore throat, you'll think twice about the fact that I need to kill the bug. Okay? As opposed to support the organism. Like, who is it that usually gets laryngitis? Somebody who's going to be public speaking, right? Or maybe they choked back something they really, really wanted to say to their spouse or their boss, and they just wish I could just tell them my mind, right? And it's the emotional thing that changed, because guess what? We all have strep. Every one of you has strep in their mouth. That's been proven now. You do a throat culture over and over, you'll find it eventually. It's there. So what keeps you from getting strep throat is not constant antibiotics. What keeps you from getting a strep throat is correcting what's underlying that. Even the medical community says now, they're asking their doctors, the AMA, is asking their medical doctors to not treat sore throats and ear infections and upper respiratory tract infections with antibiotics anymore. Because they said, guess what? 7 to 10 days, which is how long they usually would give you an antibiotic for. In 7 to 10 days, do nothing, and it's still okay. And the patient's fine. So it wasn't the antibiotic even, right? Very often. So again, you fix the emotional thing as it happens. You live the life you're supposed to all the time. You don't cheat and sometimes go, hey, I'm in Vegas, and what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, so I can smoke this cigar, right? I can scream at this rock concert at the top of my lungs, damaging the vocal cords, and what happens? The infection gets in. It was always there, but is it part of a healing response? Do we really need to jump on colloidal silvers that kill the bugs for us? You know, there's a big debate. Again, this is what I'm talking about, philosophy. And I'll close with this because, again, I see this so often to where people come and they think they have one thing wrong. I just want you to fix this one thing, this one infection. Well, here we're saying, if I can find everything that's gone wrong in the body and correct that, you go back to normal health. Not just remission. Remember, remission is that temporary phase. Remission is when you get scissors stuck in your leg from running like your mom said not to, with scissors, and I shoot you up with morphine. Remission is that time where you don't feel the scissors. But you know it's coming back. The pain's coming back because the scissors are still there, right? That's remission. That's why it always comes back. This is why the Surgeon General said that we now know we cannot improve upon the surgical removal of cancer, of tumors. That was in 1920. The French Surgeon General said that we cannot improve upon the success by removing tumors surgically. Because even in 1920, they knew that the tumor was not anything but the most obvious manifestation of a systemic problem. Right? We all know that. So now if you have a gamma knife, we go, oh, but it's the gamma knife. I was like, that's just a sharper scalpel. Right? It's a laser. You moved it with a laser. That's better. I was like, it's just sharper. But the actual cause of the cancer remains. If you don't address that by addressing how do we restore what's optimum body temperature, optimum emotional energy, optimum biochemistry, optimum biophotonic regulation of your body, every aspect of human existence, we get you not to sleep next to the electrical conduit box that comes into your house, if that's what's going on. We get you to not put your laptop on your lap. We get you to not eat the Doritos, to not do just because some famous athlete promotes Coca-Cola, which will leach minerals out of your body. Okay, women, if you want to keep away from osteoporosis, then don't drink pop. It's going to pull more minerals out of your body than anything else. So again, when people come here, they have to understand 2 weeks, we can get some pretty cool stuff to happen on some certain individuals. But we can't get perfect health any more than you could go to a gym for 2 weeks and see big muscles suddenly. It is a journey. There is a reason behind why you do what you do. You aren't here so that you can get back to your unbalanced lifestyle, right? Although that's kind of the thing. It's like nobody would go to the doctor except for the fact that their illness is preventing them from doing something they really want to be doing, right? So it isn't that, like I had some family tell me, God's delivered us from natural things, and we're just so happy with our Fruit Loops and Twinkies. Seriously told me that. Because I didn't get it. It's like, why do you do this? Why do we live this lifestyle? Why is this such to us a more perfect way to heal? No matter what label you've been given. Because when we restore what's optimum in every aspect of our life, whether that's forgiving somebody at home or somebody that's even dead, you know, how many times we hold on to unforgiveness even the person's dead. That stuff is like drinking poison, expecting the dead person to die again somehow. You're the one that's going to suffer, right? So that's why this is truly body, mind, and spirit. We're trying to help guide you to why do we wear all natural fiber, clothes? Why do you not use perfumes and colognes and toxic body chemicals? Why do you actually eat the right way at home? Why do you choose this form of medicine? Okay? It's because it will influence your own life better than if we just left you in what the world is doing. So I hope this makes some sense. I know I rambled some, and I apologize for that, but the wisdom of the body is so amazing. There's so many examples of how if we understood what the body was doing and supported that, then the body would finish doing the job that it needed, and health follows speedily. So thank you for coming. I hope this makes a lot of sense to you, and I will open the floor for questions now.